My name is Jessica Harper. The day my divorce hearing started, my husband walked in smiling like he had already won. He was demanding every single asset we owned, the house, the savings, everything, plus full custody of our 7-year-old daughter. I sat there watching his lawyer hand the judge a thick folder full of proof that I was an unfit mother, emotionally unstable, irresponsible with money, the whole package. The judge was nodding, the bailiff looked bored, and I could feel the room turning against me. Then the judge asked if anyone had final statements before he ruled. That's when my father, who had been sitting quietly in the back row the entire time, stood up. He was wearing his usual old blazer, holding nothing but a small USB drive in his hand. He looked straight at the judge and said, calm as ever, "Your Honor, before you decide anything, everyone in this room needs to see this." He walked to the front, plugged the drive into the court system, and pressed play. The second the video started rolling on the big screen, my husband's face went white. His lawyer froze mid-sentence. Even the judge leaned forward. What came next left the entire courtroom completely stunned. Before I tell you exactly what was on that video and how everything fell apart in minutes, drop a comment right now telling me which city or state you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story like this, because trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. Let's get into it. That morning started the same as most others in our 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle. Jessica Harper moved quietly around the small open kitchen, flipping blueberry pancakes while the coffee maker hissed in the background. She wore an old college hoodie and leggings, hair tied in a messy bun, trying to keep the noise down so Ryan wouldn't wake up angry again. At exactly 6:15, Ryan Mitchell came down the narrow staircase in his pressed navy suit, phone already in hand. He dropped his laptop bag by the door without a word, slid into the chair at the counter, and waited. Jessica placed a mug of black coffee and a plate in front of him the second he sat down. "The coffee's weak today," he muttered, not looking up from the screen. "Sorry, honey. I'll make the next one stronger," she answered automatically, voice low. He pushed the pancakes around with his fork, took 2 bites, then left the rest untouched. Jessica stood a few feet away, wiping the same spot on the counter over and over, waiting for any other instruction. None came. Footsteps pattered overhead. Olivia Mitchell, their 7-year-old, appeared at the bottom of the stairs in her private school uniform, backpack bouncing. She ran straight to Jessica, wrapped her arms around her waist, then turned to Ryan. "Good morning, Daddy." Ryan finally glanced up, forced half a smile, and ruffled her hair. "Morning, sweetie. Eat fast. I'm dropping you off today." Olivia's face lit up. Jessica felt the familiar twist in her stomach. At least in front of their daughter, Ryan still pretended. They finished breakfast in near silence except for Olivia's chatter about a school art project. When the plates were empty, Ryan grabbed his keys, kissed the top of Olivia's head, and headed for the door. He walked right past Jessica without a glance. No goodbye, no touch, nothing. The front door clicked shut. The engine of his BMW roared to life, and then the apartment fell quiet again. Jessica cleared the table, loaded the dishwasher, wiped the counters one last time. She told herself if everything stayed perfect, maybe the distance would shrink. It never did. Around noon, after dropping off a client file online and picking Olivia up from school, Jessica found a thick manila envelope leaning against the apartment door. No return address except the embossed logo of a downtown law firm in the corner. Her stomach dropped before she even touched it. Olivia was already inside, kicking off her shoes. Jessica closed the door, sat on the couch, and tore the envelope open with shaking fingers. The first page made the room spin. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Plaintiff: Ryan Mitchell. Defendant: Jessica Harper. She read it twice, then a third time, hoping the words would rearrange themselves. They didn't. The demands came next. Ryan wanted the apartment, bought in his name before the marriage, the entire savings account, both cars, and every dollar in their joint checking. He also wanted sole legal and physical custody of Olivia, claiming Jessica suffered from severe anxiety, neglected household finances, and created an unstable environment for the child. Jessica's hands went cold. She had quit her full-time graphic design job when Olivia was born because Ryan said one parent needed to be home. She'd been freelancing ever since, bringing in steady money, paying half the bills from her own account. None of that was mentioned. Olivia walked in holding a juice box. "Mommy, what's that?" "Just some boring grown-up papers, sweetie. Go start your homework. I'll make snacks in a minute." As soon as Olivia disappeared down the hall, Jessica kept reading. Ryan's declaration painted her as unreliable, emotionally volatile, incapable of providing consistent care. He even attached a draft parenting plan that gave her supervised visits every other weekend. The apartment suddenly felt too small. She stood up, walked to the window, and stared at the gray Seattle sky. Ryan had planned this. Every late night at the office, every cold shoulder, every dollar he insisted on controlling. It was all leading here. The front door opened again. Ryan stepped in hours earlier than usual, loosened his tie, and looked at the scattered papers on the couch. His expression didn't change. "You got the package," he said flatly. Jessica turned, clutching the pages to her chest. "Ryan, all of it? The apartment, the money, Olivia?" He shrugged out of his jacket. "It's for the best. You're not handling things well lately. Olivia needs stability." "Stability?" Her voice cracked. "I'm with her every single day." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "You're home, sure, but look around. Bill's late, projects half finished, crying all the time. She deserves better." Jessica felt the tears coming and hated herself for it. "We can fix this. Counseling, whatever you want. There's nothing to fix." He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "My lawyer says the judge will see it my way. Sign the papers, Jessica. Make it easy. Or I promise you'll walk away with nothing." He brushed past her, headed for the bedroom, and closed the door behind him. Jessica stood frozen in the living room, the petition still in her hands, the weight of everything she was about to lose pressing down harder than ever. Jessica sat on the couch long after Ryan disappeared into the bedroom. The petition pages spread across the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. She opened the banking app on her phone with trembling fingers and logged into their joint account, the one they'd always called the family safety net. Balance, 0. She refreshed 3 times. Still 0. The transaction history showed large transfers over the past 5 months, each one labeled investment withdrawal, all sent to an account number she didn't recognize. The final transfer had happened 4 days ago and cleaned out the last remaining dollars. Her wedding ring felt suddenly heavy. She walked to the bedroom dresser, opened the small velvet box where she kept the necklace Ryan had given her on their 5th anniversary. Real gold, tiny diamonds. Empty. Only cheap earrings she never wore remained. The front door opened again. Ryan stepped back in carrying a takeout bag from the Italian place downtown, acting as if the last conversation had never happened. Olivia ran out of her room at the smell of garlic bread. "Daddy, did you bring dessert too?" "Of course, sweetie." He handed her the bag and watched her skip to the kitchen. Jessica blocked his path. "Where's the money, Ryan? And my necklace?" He met her eyes without blinking. "Investments didn't pan out, had to cover some losses, and the necklace is being cleaned. You emptied everything. That account was supposed to be for Olivia's college." He lowered his voice so Olivia wouldn't hear. "Stop being dramatic. You never paid attention to the finances anyway." Jessica felt the room tilt. "You've been planning this." Ryan glanced toward the kitchen, then leaned in close. "Yes, Jessica, I have. Because I'm done pretending. There's someone else. Someone who actually has a career, ambition, a life. You sit at home drawing logos all day while I carry everything." The words hit harder than any slap. Jessica's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Ryan continued, calm and cruel. "Sophia understands the real world. She's a partner at her practice, not scraping by on freelance gigs. When this is over, Olivia will have the kind of life she deserves with both of us. Jessica found her voice. You're not taking my daughter. He smiled, small and cold. Watch me. Olivia came back holding a breadstick. Ryan turned on the perfect father act instantly, laughing as she told him about school. Jessica stood frozen, watching him kiss the top of their daughter's head like he hadn't just ripped her world apart. After Olivia went to bed, Jessica locked herself in the bathroom and called the only person she knew would listen without judgment. Megan Harper speaking. Her younger sister answered on the second ring. Jessica whispered everything. The petition, the empty accounts, the missing necklace, Ryan's confession about another woman named Sophia. She cried quietly so Olivia wouldn't wake up. Megan stayed silent until Jessica finished. That bastard, she said finally. He's been moving money for months and you had no idea. I trusted him with the passwords. He said it was easier. Jess, you can't let him do this. Olivia needs you. We're not letting him win. Jessica pressed her forehead against the cool tile wall. I don't even know where to start. I have maybe $2,000 in my personal freelance account. He controls everything else. First thing tomorrow, you find a lawyer who works with people who don't have a trust fund. I know a couple names from parents at my school. Second, Dad needs to know. He's been asking why Ryan stopped coming to Sunday dinners. Jessica closed her eyes. Their father, Thomas Harper, had retired from the fire department 2 years ago and lived 40 minutes north in Everett. He had never liked Ryan. Always said he smiled too much when things weren't funny. I can't drag Dad into this, Jessica said. You're not dragging him. He's family, and family fights back. Megan kept talking, making lists, sending lawyer websites, promising to drive down first thing in the morning. By the time Jessica hung up, the tears had dried into something harder. She walked past the closed guest room door where Ryan now slept and stood outside Olivia's room. Through the crack, she watched her daughter sleep, clutching the stuffed giraffe she'd had since she was 2. Ryan could take the money, the apartment, even the necklace, but he was not taking Olivia. Jessica made a promise right there in the dark hallway. She would fight with everything she had left, and if Ryan thought she would just disappear quietly, he was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. Ryan started coming home earlier every evening, always carrying colorful shopping bags with boutique logos. He handed them to Olivia the moment he stepped inside, new sneakers with lights in the soles, a rose gold tablet loaded with games, designer backpack, expensive art supplies Jessica would never have bought on her freelance income. Olivia's eyes went wide each time, hugging him tight while he shot Jessica a satisfied glance over their daughter's head. Jessica watched the pile grow in Olivia's room and felt the knot in her chest tighten. Ryan never asked permission, never checked if the gifts were age-appropriate. He simply bought affection in shiny wrapping paper. One afternoon, Jessica scheduled a consultation with attorney Daniel Foster, a solo practitioner Megan had found through a parent at her elementary school. His office sat above a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, cramped but warm, walls lined with framed thank you drawings from kids he had helped keep with their moms. Daniel wore rolled-up sleeves and listened without interrupting while Jessica laid out the petition, the drained accounts, Ryan's girlfriend, everything. When she finished, he leaned back, rubbed his beard, and spoke for the first time. He's trying to buy the Guardian ad litem report before it happens all the time with high earners. We fight fire with facts, not money. He slid a retainer agreement across the desk. The fee was half what Ryan's downtown firm probably charged per hour. Jessica signed without hesitation, using the last of her personal savings. That same evening, Megan drove down from Everett with their father. Thomas Harper filled the doorway of the apartment, still built like the firefighter he used to be. Gray hair cropped short, wearing the same leather jacket he'd owned for 20 years. He hugged Jessica so hard her ribs creaked, then looked around the tense rooms with sharp eyes. Ryan walked in midway through dinner, froze when he saw Thomas sitting at the table. then recovered with a tight smile and excused himself to his office. Thomas waited until Olivia was asleep before he spoke. "I want to know exactly what that boy is doing when he says he's working late," he said quietly. Megan nodded. "I already pulled his public calendar from the company website. There are gaps, 3, sometimes 4 evenings a week with no client dinners listed." Jessica started to protest, but Thomas raised a hand. "I'm not asking permission, kiddo. I'm telling you, I'm going to find out." Over the next days, he became a shadow. He parked his old pickup 2 blocks from Ryan's downtown office building and waited. He learned the security guard rotation, the garage exit Ryan used, the route he took when he didn't go straight home. Thomas kept a small notebook on the passenger seat and wrote times, license plates, addresses in neat block letters. Jessica tried to focus on gathering financial records Daniel had requested: tax returns, freelance invoices, bank statements showing her contributions to the household. Every document felt like proof she wasn't the failure Ryan claimed. She printed everything at the library because Ryan had changed the Wi-Fi password the day after she hired counsel. Ryan kept up the gift parade. One night, he brought Olivia a purebred puppy, some designer doodle that cost more than Jessica's monthly income. Olivia squealed and named it on the spot. Jessica stood in the kitchen doorway, gripping a dish towel so hard her knuckles went white, while Ryan smirked and told Olivia Mommy would take care of all the walks and vet bills. Thomas saw the puppy arrive when he followed Ryan home that evening. He texted Megan a single photo of Ryan carrying the dog crate out of a high-end pet boutique, time-stamped. Megan forwarded it to Jessica with the caption, "More ammunition." Daniel filed an emergency motion for temporary orders, equal parenting time, exclusive use of the apartment, and an order freezing whatever assets Ryan hadn't already hidden. The hearing was set for the following week. Ryan's response came fast. Dozens of pages accusing Jessica of alienating Olivia, coaching her to say bad things about Daddy, even claiming the puppy made Olivia anxious because Jessica refused to help care for it. Thomas read the filing over Jessica's shoulder and muttered something under his breath that would have gotten him written up back at the firehouse. Then he grabbed his keys. That night, he followed Ryan to a sleek glass condo tower in Belltown. Ryan parked in the resident garage, used a key fob, disappeared inside. Thomas waited across the street until the lights came on in a 22nd floor unit. A woman with dark hair stepped onto the balcony, handed Ryan a glass of wine. They kissed like people who had done it 1,000 times. Thomas raised his phone and recorded 30 seconds of steady, no shake, no zoom, just clear evidence. He sent the clip to Megan with no message, then drove home to Everett. Jessica received the video the next morning while making Olivia's lunch. She watched it once, saved it to a hidden folder, and forwarded it straight to Daniel. Her hands didn't say a word about where it came from. Ryan had no idea the quiet retired firefighter sitting in the back row of the courtroom weeks later would be the one to end everything he had planned. Thomas sat in the corner of a crowded downtown coffee shop, baseball cap pulled low, newspaper open but unread. Ryan walked in first, ordered 2 lattes, and took a table by the window. Minutes later, a tall woman in a charcoal blazer entered, scanned the room once, then slid into the seat across from him. Dr. Sophia Reyes, licensed psychologist, partner at a private practice in Bellevue. The name Thomas had seen on the condo mailbox nights earlier. They didn't waste time on small talk. Sophia pulled a thin folder from her leather tote and pushed it toward Ryan. Inside were printed screenshots. Jessica's freelance invoices stamped late. Photos of the apartment with dishes piled in the sink. Laundry on the floor. Olivia's lunchbox open and half-eaten on the counter. Another set showed text messages supposedly from Jessica to Megan complaining about motherhood, calling Olivia exhausting and a burden on my career. Sophia spoke softly but clearly. These will convince any evaluator she's overwhelmed and depressed. I'll testify that I've treated similar mothers who lost custody because they couldn't maintain a stable routine. Ryan flipped through the pages, nodding approval. And the financial stuff? Already handled, Sophia said. I have a colleague who owes me a favor. She'll produce a forensic report claiming Jessica spent household money on personal shopping and gambling apps. Nothing huge, just enough to look reckless. Ryan tapped the table. What about Olivia's therapist? Can we get her to say Jessica is coaching the kid against me? Already scheduled a consultation next week. I'll guide the questions. Kids that age repeat whatever the favored parent says. Sophia leaned closer. Once the guardian ad litem sees my letterhead and hears my professional opinion, Jessica won't get unsupervised visitation. Ryan allowed himself a real smile for the first time in weeks. And after the judge rules, we move her into the Belltown condo. Olivia gets the second bedroom. New school district, fresh start, no more crying mommy dragging her down. Sophia reached across and squeezed his hand. You're doing the right thing. Some people aren't cut out to be full-time parents. Jessica will thank us one day when she's free to chase whatever little freelance dreams she has left. Thomas kept the phone in his lap angled upward, recording every word in high definition. The cafe noise covered the tiny red light. He caught their exit too. Ryan kissing Sophia goodbye in the doorway like they owned the city. That same afternoon, Ryan's lawyer delivered a fat discovery packet to Daniel Foster's office. Jessica opened it at the kitchen table after Olivia left for a playdate with Megan. Page after page of fabricated evidence. Bank statements with circled withdrawals labeled online casino. Amazon orders for designer clothes Jessica had never bought. Even a forged email chain where she supposedly asked a friend to take Olivia for a few months so I can focus on myself. The worst was a psychological evaluation dated 3 days earlier, signed by Dr. Sophia Reyes, diagnosing Jessica with adjustment disorder and recommending immediate removal of the child for her own emotional safety. Sophia claimed Jessica had contacted her privately seeking treatment, but refused to follow through, proving instability. Jessica read the lies until the words blurred. She took photos of every page, uploaded them to a secure drive Daniel had set up, then sat on the floor of Olivia's room surrounded by crayons and stuffed animals, trying to breathe through the panic. Thomas arrived unannounced that evening carrying a paper grocery bag. He set it on the counter, pulled out a cheap prepaid phone, and played the cafe video on its small screen. Jessica watched Ryan and Sophia lay out their entire plan like they were ordering lunch. When it ended, she looked up at her father, eyes burning. They're going to say these things in court, she whispered. A judge will believe a doctor over me. Thomas closed the phone and slipped it into his pocket. Not when the doctor is on camera committing perjury and fraud. That's a felony in the state, kiddo. License gone, prison time possible. Jessica stared at the frozen image of Sophia's smug face. Something inside her shifted from fear to cold determination. Ryan thought he had bought experts and evidence. He had no idea the one person he'd dismissed years ago as an overprotective father-in-law was about to hand him the kind of proof money couldn't buy. Daniel received the video file anonymously the next morning, attached to an email from a burner account. He watched it twice, forwarded it to an investigator contact at the state psychology board, then called Jessica with the calmest voice he could manage. Whatever happens in that courtroom, he told her, they just handed us the case. Jessica hung up, walked to the window, and looked out at the rain hitting Puget Sound. For the first time since the petition arrived, she wasn't afraid anymore. The King County courtroom smelled of old wood and too much bleach. Jessica sat rigid beside Daniel Foster while Ryan lounged at the opposite table. Suit perfect, smirk barely hidden. Attorney Karen Ellis, Ryan's counsel, moved like she owned the room. Tall, red soles flashing under her black pumps, voice sharp enough to cut glass. Karen began with the forged bank statements, projecting them one by one on the screen. Withdrawals labeled luxury purchases, online gambling, unexplained cash advances. She narrated each slide as if Jessica had blown the family fortune on shoes and slot machines. Daniel objected on foundation and chain of custody. The judge overruled every time. Next came the photos of the apartment in staged chaos. Trash overflowing, dishes crusted with food, Olivia's toys scattered like a tornado hit. Karen paused dramatically on a picture of an empty wine bottle beside Jessica's laptop. "Your Honor, this is the environment the child returned to daily," she said, letting the silence do the rest. Jessica gripped the edge of the table so hard her nails left marks. Daniel squeezed her wrist under the table, a silent reminder to breathe. Then Karen called Dr. Sophia Reyes to the stand. Sophia walked in wearing a conservative navy suit, hair in a low bun, the picture of professional concern. She swore in, stated her credentials, and began reading from the fake evaluation she had written weeks earlier. "In my expert opinion, Mrs. Harper exhibits chronic disorganization, emotional volatility, and poor impulse control," Sophia said smoothly. "Continued exposure to this instability poses a clear risk to the minor child's psychological development." Daniel rose for cross. "Doctor, isn't it true you've never met my client in a clinical setting?" Sophia didn't flinch. Mrs. Harper reached out informally for help, but declined formal treatment. That refusal itself is diagnostically significant. Karen followed up, handing Sophia the forged text messages. Sophia read them aloud, voice dripping sympathy, quoting Jessica supposedly calling Olivia a creativity killer. "And the reason I can't take bigger clients." Jessica felt every eye in the gallery turn toward her. Thomas sat 3 rows back, arms crossed, face unreadable. Megan gripped his forearm so tightly her knuckles went white. Karen saved the worst for last. She called Jessica to the stand. The questions came fast and vicious. "Did you or did you not tell your sister you regretted having a child? Did you spend over $8,000 on clothing while your husband paid every bill? Have you ever left your daughter alone to go drinking with friends?" Jessica answered, "No, no, no," voice cracking, face burning. Karen kept pushing, repeating the lies louder each time, twisting every denial into proof of guilt. The courtroom blurred. Jessica heard herself raise her voice, heard the word lies echo too loud, saw the judge bang the gavel once for order. "Mrs. Harper, control yourself or I will hold you in contempt," the judge warned. Jessica's vision tunneled. She looked straight at Ryan. He met her eyes and smiled, small, victorious, certain the case was already over. Karen rested her case with a satisfied nod to the bench. The judge flipped through the thick binder of exhibits, brow furrowed, then addressed Daniel. "Counsel, anything further before I rule on temporary orders?" Daniel stood slowly. "Nothing at this time, Your Honor. We reserve the right to recall witnesses at final trial." The judge made a note, then looked at the clock. "We'll recess until tomorrow morning for oral argument and decision." Jessica stepped down from the stand on shaking legs. Karen brushed past her in the aisle, whispering just loud enough for Jessica alone to hear. "You should have signed the first offer." Ryan didn't even glance back as he left with his team, already loosening his tie, already celebrating. Jessica walked out into the marble hallway and leaned against the cold wall, fighting the urge to slide to the floor. Thomas appeared at her side, placed a steady hand on her shoulder, and said nothing. He didn't need to. Tomorrow, the same judge would strip her of her daughter, her home, everything, unless something changed before the gavel fell again. The courtroom filled again the next morning, tension thicker than the day before. Ryan sat relaxed, legs crossed, already tasting victory. Karen Ellis arranged her notes with calm precision. Sophia sat directly behind them in the first row, arms folded, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Jessica took her seat beside Daniel, hands clasped so tightly they ached. The judge entered, everyone rose, then settled into heavy silence. He adjusted his glasses and began speaking without looking up from the file. After reviewing the evidence and testimony presented, I am prepared to issue temporary orders. The court finds the mother has failed to rebut the substantial showing of financial irresponsibility and emotional instability. Accordingly, effective immediately, Thomas Harper stood up in the back row. Every head turned. The bailiff took one step forward. Thomas raised a hand, calm but firm, and addressed the bench directly. Your Honor, with the court's permission, before any order is entered, this needs to be seen by everyone in this room. He walked down the center aisle carrying nothing but a small USB drive. The judge lifted an eyebrow, but nodded once. Thomas reached the clerk, plugged the drive into the evidence laptop, and hit play. The large screen lit up with the coffee shop recording, date and timestamp clear in the corner. Ryan's voice filled the room first. Once the guardian ad litem sees my letterhead and hears my professional opinion, Jessica won't get unsupervised visitation. Sophia's voice followed, cold and clinical. I'll testify that I've treated similar mothers who lost custody. Nothing huge, just enough to look reckless. The video continued, Ryan laughing about moving Olivia into the Belltown condo, Sophia promising to guide the child therapist's questions, both of them discussing forged invoices, staged photos, and the fake diagnosis. Ryan shot to his feet. Objection! That's illegally obtained. The judge's gavel cracked. Sit down, Mr. Mitchell. You'll have your turn. Karen Ellis went pale, papers slipping from her fingers. Sophia gripped the bench in front of her, knuckles white. The clip rolled on, showing Ryan transferring the last $37,000 from the joint account to an offshore LLC while Sophia watched. Then the two of them celebrating with champagne on her balcony. When it ended, the room stayed silent for 3 full seconds, long enough for the wait to settle. The judge removed his glasses slowly. Bailiff, detain Mr. Mitchell and Dr. Reyes. Court security will escort them to holding. 2 deputies moved instantly. Ryan tried to back away, stumbled over his chair, face drained of color. Sophia stood frozen as cuffs clicked around her wrists. Karen Ellis remained seated, staring straight ahead like the floor had opened beneath her. Daniel rose, voice steady. Your Honor, in light of this new evidence showing fraud on the court, perjury and conspiracy, we move to dismiss the petitioner's claims with prejudice and request immediate sanctions. The judge didn't hesitate. Motion granted. All relief sought by the petitioner is denied. Temporary sole custody is awarded to the mother pending full investigation. The court refers Dr. Reyes to the State Psychology Board and both individuals to the King County prosecutor for criminal charges. Ryan found his voice as deputies pulled him toward the side door. This is a mistake. That video is fake. The judge looked at him over the bench. Mr. Mitchell, the metadata says otherwise. Take him out. Jessica sat motionless while the room erupted around her. Thomas walked forward, placed a hand on her shoulder, then stepped back as Megan rushed in from the hallway and wrapped her in a crushing hug. Karen Ellis gathered her briefcase with shaking hands and left without a word to her client. Sophia's heels scraped the floor as they dragged her past Jessica. She refused to meet anyone's eyes. The judge addressed Jessica directly. Mrs. Harper, the record will reflect that none of the allegations against you were substantiated. You are free to leave with your daughter today, and all assets remain frozen until the criminal matter is resolved. Jessica managed a nod, tears finally spilling over. The gavel fell once more, final this time. As the courtroom emptied, Thomas stood quietly by the rail. Jessica walked over and hugged him so hard neither of them could speak. Ryan's shouts echoed down the hallway until a heavy door slammed shut behind him. Everything he had built, every lie, every dollar, every plan collapsed in under 8 minutes of video. 3 months after that video played in the King County courtroom, the first sentence was handed down. Ryan Mitchell, 38, former finance director at a Seattle tech firm, was convicted of fraud, conspiracy to commit perjury, and first-degree theft for draining every joint account into offshore LLCs before filing for divorce. The judge was blunt. The defendant attempted to weaponize this court to strip a mother of her child and her life savings. Ryan got 8 years in state prison with no early release, plus a restitution order exceeding $1.2 million with penalties and interest. Dr. Sophia Reyes, 41, once a respected partner at a high-end Bellevue psychology practice, had her license permanently revoked within 2 weeks of the Washington State Psychology Board's emergency hearing. She was convicted of perjury, suborning perjury, and fraud upon the court. The judge's words still ring in my ears. The defendant used her expertise as a weapon to destroy a mother and a child for personal gain. Sophia was sentenced to 5 years, with a minimum of 3 before parole eligibility. Ryan's attorney, Karen Ellis, was suspended from practice for 2 years and is now facing a separate bar complaint and civil suits for submitting fabricated evidence without verification. As for me, I stayed in the old apartment just long enough to sell it at the peak of the market, pay off the few remaining bills, and buy a small house with a backyard in North Seattle where Olivia and that overpriced doodle finally have room to run. The sale proceeds, combined with Ryan's restitution and the settlement from Sophia's malpractice insurance, gave me a cushion I never thought I'd have. But sitting still has never been my style. In October of that same year, Megan, my dad Thomas, and I opened a little design studio called Second Draft Studio. Megan left teaching to run operations. Dad now reviews contracts and makes the best coffee on the block. We specialize in branding for single moms starting businesses, divorced parents rebuilding their professional identity, and kids who want their first comic book printed. Flexible pricing, payment plans, no judgment. Olivia is 9 now. She still calls the dog Sprinkles. Every Friday night the 4 of us make pizza from scratch and watch old movies. Nobody walks on eggshells in their own home anymore.